Okay, Cade Mila Falcha, welcome to Irish Granny Tarot, and welcome to my esteemed guest, Christine Madrid Valenzuela, the author of Open Heart Club. Now, this is a grief journal, journey through loss and reestablishing a new life. And I want to talk a little bit about the structure of this particular book this weekend, but because I do one every week. But first, Christine, I'd love it if you would introduce yourself. And
Sure. I'm Christine, and I am a retired school teacher. And I joke saying I'm a retired middle school teacher because it gives a little bit of clout. People kind of, gasp. How could you do
fear
that?
You.
Yeah, yeah. I have, I still say I have 3 children. My son was my eldest, and then I have 2 girls after that, and I have 2 granddaughters. And we raised my son's daughter. He had full custody, and so we raised her, and she's now a college student and doing very well.
Already, really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that much time had passed. Wow.
Yeah. So when he passed, I'm a journal person. I always write. I've always written in my journals, and that was where I went to after he passed. And so it was a while from the time I decided to do this book and when I wrote my journals. That's why it's a whole journey of probably at least 5 years before, it got to be something that I thought I would do. And the journaling is what really helped me. Actually, it's just getting your emotions and your thoughts, whatever they are, however crazy they are, however new they are, and everything that you question after something like that happens. He was 37 years old, and he had an undiagnosed enlarged heart, and so he just collapsed. And
I'm so sad. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, your life turns on a dime. And he was a decathlete, and he did triathlons and water polo. I mean, just one of those things.
Totally unexpected, and the shock of that. So let me first talk just a second. I really want to get into your story, but I want to set the stage here. So this book is really an interesting book. And if you'll notice, it's shorter than what I usually do. I usually end up making multiple videos synopsizing a book. And I'm not doing that at all. I'm going to let you talk about the progress of the book. And I'm going to make a separate video and talk about grief in general, but I want to get what you went through. But I thought it was so interesting because I always like to look up word origins. You'll appreciate that because you're, a teacher. And I knew that the word journal came from the French for the word jour for day, right? But I didn't know this. I hope you don't know this. I hope I get to surprise you because this is just, I love words. This is great.
I do too.
So it comes from the Latin diurnal, which diurnalis, which is an adjective, and it meant of the day, right? But it went from ancient Greek, I don't even try to read the letters, to Latin. And then from Latin, it went into Old Italian, giorno, for day. And then from that to French, jour, journal. But a journal in Old French was a very specific thing. It was a book of daily prayer. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Isn't that fascinating? It was a day-by-day book of daily prayer. And I thought, wow, it gave me chills because I thought, wow, this is what this was for you, right?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
And the format, let me show everybody the format. So you have these short chapters where you talk about your progress, and then there is an area there to keep a journal. So I took advantage of it, and usually I keep notes, on a pad of paper. I took advantage of it and kept my notes here. I want to talk
that's great.
About. But for somebody who's struggling with a loss and would like support, this book is fabulous, and it provides, a space to jot down your thoughts, and so you don't have to run around like I do trying to find things that you've misplaced. So
Right.
what I'd like to start out with is in the immediate aftermath. Talk about what you went through in the immediate aftermath of your son's very sad dying.
Yeah. Well, so after, after he passed, it was there was no foundation to stand on anymore. So it was like I was, now the matriarch of my family, and I, had to continue functioning. And now we have my granddaughter 24/7, and I have two daughters who are also in grieving, a husband who is in grieving, and I don't know how to help any of them because I don't even know how to help myself. I'm drowning, but I'm trying to pretend that everything's fine and I can handle this, because I think that's kind of what a lot of, women, you
Yeah.
kind of do.
Yeah.
You keep the household together. And so I did. I was this wonderful Stepford, grieving mother who, for all intents and purposes, on the outside looked like she was doing okay. And when I'd open my journal and, write my thoughts, I thought, what, how are you going to hang on? What are you going to do? And I did all kinds of things. I pretended, I went into denial. I did anything at that particular moment that I thought could keep this facade going. And I was just grasping at straws. I read other literature, not much, because I wasn't ready yet and it didn't suit me. I attended some grieving courses, a couple
That
of
was a
sessions.
very interesting part of your story. Oh my God. Why don't you go into a little detail
Sure.
about that? Yeah.
So I, and I was getting loving suggestions from so many friends and family members. And so I went to the session. I tried one and I thought, gosh, I don't think it's for me. And I went to a second one, and I think might have been the third one that I went to. And a person walked in, and you could hear the sobbing before they got to the room. So we were all kind of used to each other, and we looked up, and the person came in and sat down right next to me, and was just sobbing, holding there and sobbing through the whole thing. And I kept thinking, gosh, I think they're here too soon. I don't think they can handle this yet.
It's too raw. Yeah.
Too raw, much too raw. I mean, I don't even know how they made it to the room that evening. And then they asked, if they wanted to share their story. So the person shared about their loss, and it was a older child, and just gave all the details of his child's life. And then someone asked, we were all wondering, and someone finally asked, when did this happen? And he said 12 years ago. And I can't even tell you the chills that I got from head to toe, and the shock that I felt that he was walking around in this living hell for 12 years, because it's horrible. It's hell. It's just this dark pit, this abyss that you don't know how to get out of. And he continued to sob, and I didn't know what else to do except just kind of pat his shoulder, because I was so afraid, thinking that might be me.
Yeah, it's like looking into a mirror about yourself in the future, right? This is
Right.
kind of a gift to you, actually, to see that. It sounds
Yeah,
weird
it really
to say.
was.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
this person is the reason why I wrote this book, because
Right.
I could not shake that torture. I could not shake his torture. I knew what it felt like, and I couldn't shake the torture that was being experienced. And then I started thinking of how many other people are 12, 20 years. And then in hindsight, I know I've met these people. I've met people, or widows or widowers, that I've spoken to, or one woman in particular that I knew that had lost a child, and there was a light missing, and I knew it. And I thought, no, they just can't stay there. They can't stay there. Nobody can stay there. So I started writing and writing and writing. And then it was through my daughters who said, why don't you, I said, I feel like I got to do something, but I have no idea what to do. I'm not going to start a grief group. I'm not ready yet. I'm still healing. And then they suggested I turn this into a grief journal. And then,
brilliant. Yeah, really brilliant.
but I didn't want it just to be my story, because I knew the healing will come through their own digging and and pulling up their feelings. So my intelligent daughters again said, make it a journal and include some of your excerpts if you feel comfortable. So I did. I included excerpts of my own journal to use kind of, and then the teacher part of me was like, yes, writing prompt, just to let you know, this is where I went. Now investigate where you have to
Well, I
go.
think that's such a valuable thing that you did, because what you did is you encountered this person in such protracted grief, stuck in it, and it held a mirror up to you, and you saw you didn't want yourself reflected back, right? So what
Right.
you're doing in this book is providing what you went through for people to hold a mirror up to them. I think it's like this fabulous continuation. You're giving what you received from him, basically, in that grief group.
Yeah.
And it's so valuable, because often, as you well know, when you're stuck in depression, because that's part of it, the
Hmm.
inertia, the inability,
Yes.
it's just a state of stasis. You can't
Yes.
get out of it.
Yes.
So to know that, okay, this is normal, and to acknowledge, oh, I recognize that that's what other people going through, and I'm going through the same thing. Let me
Hmm.
write that down and think about what I'm going through. I think it's so valuable what you did. It's fabulous.
Yeah, yeah. It was kind of like drowning, and then every once in a while your head would bob when you started to come out of it, and you'd see others who were drowning, or maybe somebody was in a canoe now, or so
Yeah.
there was this possibility of coming up from the depths and then being able finally to start to move forward, to progress. And and then as I started to come out of my grief a little bit more, or rather through my grief, I then also realized, gosh, my family's grieving. My children are grieving. My husband's grieving. My granddaughter's grieving. That was her dad. And so then I knew, like, okay, let's work. Let's do it. Let's dig.
So did they do actual physical journaling like you did, or did you sort of make a point of talking specifically about it on a regular? How did you handle that?
No, I mean, we would, when we would gather, we would talk about it. It was difficult with my granddaughter because she didn't really, she was not open to address it. She was just brokenhearted,
In pain?
but I in pain, and so I did have her. I found therapists for her, so where she could go, and so she was regularly with a therapist. When that one didn't fit anymore, we stopped. We found that somebody else, or whatever it was that she was ready for. She did a lot of. I put her in painting and art, and and music, and so that was an area where she could just. So I guess my journaling expression, hers was her artistic expression that helped her, and
They do
so
that a lot with children who've been in trauma.
right,
It's
right,
really valuable, art therapy and
yeah.
music therapy.
Right. And so that's where I put her. When she didn't want to talk, I thought, okay, let's go to the arts and see. And it did. It sort of lightened her.
That was so smart. It was really kind of intuitive of you. One of my daughters is a dancer,
Yeah.
and it's very interesting when she has a lot of friends who are choreographers, and
Hmm.
and you can see when they create a piece, a dance piece. You can see often them working through trauma, working through a
Yeah.
topic that that haunts them, and it's therapy for them. And
Right.
put it out there publicly, and people acknowledge it, and that's a form of support too.
Definitely. And when you feel that kind of energy in a piece of work or music or art, it really draws you in. There's something about energetically, at least personally, I can feel it, you
Oh, I
know.
agree. Yeah, they call it like feeling the vibe, right?
Hmm.
There are
Hmm.
certain works of art that
Yeah.
really, really connect with you, and
Hmm.
same with music. And the other side of the coin is true too. The process of doing that puts
Right.
that energy out there, and
Yeah.
then you can see what you're dealing with, kind of
Right.
recognize what's going on
Right.
inside. I think it's wonderful that you did that for her. She's very lucky in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so am I. I mean, I said, also my salvation was also that I had a child to raise.
Yeah.
So there was no checking out, there's a child to be raised. And, I am a mom, and I have all those, responsibilities and everything that moms feel. So that was an anchor. That really was
But you
an
have to
anchor.
you should be uh, given some credit for having the strength of character to do that, because I don't know. I think I would have crawled under the covers with C's candy, and that would have been me. I would just
Well, I
check
did that
out.
too.
Oh,
I did that too. Sometimes a little stronger than C's candy.
Oh, yeah. See, that is really the rocky road that many people go down when they're in grief.
Sure.
That triggers, all sorts of addictive behaviors and checking out
Right.
socially, and it's
Yeah. You just want to numb. You just want to numb, for however long or temporary or whatever. You want to numb that pain. That's
yeah.
why doing something was so important to me, because I could not bear the thought every day, like a monkey on my back, that there are people walking around in that state. It was terrifying. And so whatever, my bar was really low. I said, if one person resonates with one word, one sentence, one paragraph, I'm so happy. I'm thrilled, And
Well, that's my philosophy here.
yeah, right.
And women just demographically, statistically, women are often more likely to be left alone, to suffer the loss of a spouse, or to be a caretaker of a parent or a relative who dies, and often women are left not knowing how to cope, not knowing what direction to go in. And it drives me crazy when people talk about closure. But we haven't gotten there yet. Let me refresh my memory. I've got all these notes here in your thank you, very generous lines that. Okay, so you connected. We talked about the grief group, and you said the dark shows the light, which is so fascinating to me, because you know what? That's something that I've been talking about a lot lately. That the horrible things going on in the world, they do serve a purpose, don't they?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
And then death shows your life. When somebody dies, it's kind of a reminder that, hey, you're alive. You have a life to live. And you acknowledge that. So let's see here. Let's see, discovering. Oh, you talked about when you first started to keep your journal, you were sort of dreading what you were going to see, what words you were going to see on the page.
Yes. I mean, I'm basically a very positive person. I'm a happy person. I'm positive. I'm always, since I was a kid, I was not a Debbie Downer, and I didn't like feeling down. So I would, work through things so I could just, kind of reach a balance again. And I was so imbalanced, and things that I was feeling were so dark, just really dark. And so part of grief, the stages and things that I personally went through, the anger comes up, and the anger, it's a rage. It's rage that comes up, and
it's not fair, right? That whole
everything.
Yeah,
because it's a parent's worst nightmare, or for anybody who loses the love of your life, one of the loves of your life. And so it was, and so I just kind of spilled my guts in my own journal, because that's what I was feeling. It didn't mean it was true or permanent, but it's important, because at that moment, that's what needed to come out of me.
Right. Well, it's a process.
Yes.
And the process is not a straight line in one direction. It's kind of this wave that
Oh,
comes
yeah.
and goes, right? And eventually, this is I'm torturing the metaphor, but eventually the tide goes out far enough and you make more progress.
Yeah.
So it's people are, I think, hard on themselves when they even acknowledge that they're going through this at all. They feel they don't want to acknowledge the anger.
Right.
Or,
and that was one of the things. It's like, give yourself permission to let anything and everything come out, and use any words that you want to use, even the ones your mother told you, a nice little girl doesn't speak like that, whatever. You just need to.
Well, now, come on, Christine, when were you ever a nice little girl? I mean, before we started recording, we had a very interesting conversation about our common going to girls' schools, Catholic girls' schools.
Yes.
Yeah, we won't go into it.
Yeah, lots of commonalities. But so for me, it was just because I felt like the spirit is dying. My spirit was dying.
Yeah.
I knew my spirit was dying, and I didn't really care, because I didn't know how to save it, or was it worth saving, or anything like that. So when you finally allow those those, you know, restrictions to be released, and do what you say, what you need to say, express yourself the way you need to express it. Your spirit you're giving your spirit some like oxygen again, some freedom. And that's what I guess in hindsight, that's what it felt like, because they were bursts of energy. Even if it was in anger, I remember thinking, this is really good. I'm angry about something, because I was flatlining.
You're no longer numb, no longer in
Right.
total shock.
Right. So the anger, it's okay. It could leave you. And in hindsight, also, you know, I don't even know why I was angry about something, but it served its purpose at the time. So I wouldn't ignore feelings, whatever they were, as I continued to journal. And every time I knew I had progression, I described it as like a little glimmer of light. I could see a little bit more glimmer. Wasn't a bright light, wasn't, you know, follow me or this way,
Yeah,
or you know,
revelation.
eureka.
Yeah.
They were just glimmers that I kept hanging on to.
Well, you know, you said something I think is really significant, and I'd like for you to talk a little more about that. People don't dive into this much because it's too much pain, and it's the fact that a parent losing a child is the worst nightmare. It's the worst thing that can happen to anybody, and I don't know how to ask this without sounding morbid.
No, you can ask me anyway.
I don't know how, but
I'm completely
it's the
fine.
worst thing that can happen to a parent. So what are the unique things about a loss like that for a parent?
Well, all your foundational belief that you can control, and you know, your child, you're the one that will bring safety to your children from the time they're little, right? I used to look at my kids when they were asleep, you know, after I would be exhausted with the day with them, and I think, oh my God, these little angels, and I'm here, mom's here, everything's fine. Okay, that was for me, you know, a lucky illusion that I had, and it served its purpose until my son died. And then I realized there is no control. You can at best send out positive energy and good thoughts and everything else, but everybody's life is their life, and I don't have control over anybody's except my own. And even and at that point, I had no control, right? I was kind of, you know, floundering. But as a mom, I think too, and also mothering now, right after my son died, the way I approach it is kind of like everybody has to be on their path, and I can at best be supportive. And if you want advice, I'll give it to you, but you know, you don't have to follow anything I say.
That's fascinating to me, because the other option, which is probably where I'd go, is to become overprotective and paranoid and hypervigilant.
That thought did enter along the way, because I had a grandchild now, right?
Yeah.
But I couldn't muster up the belief anymore that I had control. It just was an illusion. And it kind of was freeing after I worked through everything. It's more of there's a freedom in not thinking you control all the strings.
Relinquishing that false control.
Yes.
Now, if you don't want to answer this, I understand, because it might be a little too specific and personal. But after this happened, did she fear for her own health?
She never really expressed anything like that, but I did have her, I mean, you know, her pediatrician suggested we all get heart checkups and stuff, and so she still does, actually. But she didn't really, I think she feared for my death.
Yeah.
Because I was left.
Well, if once it happens once, you just assume it can happen again, and probably will.
Sure.
Right. No,
Yeah.
I totally get that. You'll like this. This is, as a mother, I think you'll appreciate this. When one of my daughters got pregnant, she was, I don't know, obsessing about something. She was probably 5 weeks pregnant. And I said, look, let me tell you something. Let me get real with you here. From the day you know you're pregnant until the day you die, you are never going to have another complete peace of mind moment. You're going to worry about miscarriages, birth defects, a difficult labor, SIDS, childhood diseases, and I went through the whole litany.
Yeah.
I said, you're in your 40s, and I worry about you every day.
Yes.
I
Yes.
said, so welcome to being a mother. 0 peace of mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks,
Life will
Mom.
never be the same. Yes, I know. That's 100% true. And I still do it. I still go on that, little hamster wheel of fear,
Yeah,
worry, and
yeah,
doubt.
yeah, yeah.
When, I mean, I've had, my daughters are very adventurous. My middle child, that's my daughter. She's lived all over the world, and
Yeah, yeah,
she's
you
on this
mentioned it.
spiritual journey. So
Yeah.
I'm always, going back to the old religion, right?
Oh,
And
I had a conversation with my number 3 last night, as a matter of fact. She's got a long weekend, and she and her boyfriend are going to some family cabin of his, not our family, a cabin of his by a lake or a river, a body of water. And what was my first reaction? Well, if you go out in a boat, be sure you wear a life jacket.
Yeah.
She's 35 years old.
I know.
So you can never escape it.
Oh, that's true. I think that's why we didn't tell our parents everything. I think our children share so much more with us than we ever shared with ours.
I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. I didn't have the guts to defy the man. So I made up for it later, but that's another podcast. So let's see here. What else we talked about that I thought was the fact that you can't hurry this process along.
No, you can't. And everyone is on their own timetable. So even in the book, I say, if you're not ready to move forward, don't move forward. Stay wherever you need to be. And sometimes you fall back. It's not it's not linear, and it can be circular, and you can go in all kinds of directions, because your thoughts and feelings will bring up lots of other things for you.
Yeah.
And so that's why it took me a while to even finish this. I didn't finish it until I was not 100% through, but and even still, it doesn't mean that I don't hear a song and I don't, burst into tears, but they're kind of connected. It's different now, though, because I mean, like, as the journal progresses, I found something that my worst fear was that I lost a child.
Yeah.
And I don't care whether it was irrational, but my feeling was, I don't accept that. I can't accept it. I can't accept it. That can't be in my reality. So I have to create something else. But then, we started to get signs. And now that I've written this, and even before in my own family, signs have always been around of people who crossed over while they're crossing over.
Yes.
I did it with my own parents. So then that was my little hook, I thought, okay, I just have to know you're still there. I'm still connected to you. You can be in another realm. You can be wherever it is the afterlife is supposed to be. That's fine. But I have to know that I didn't lose you. I still need that connection. I don't need to hang on to you and not let you do whatever else we're supposed to do when we get there. I have no idea, but I need to know that I still have that soul with me somewhere.
That's so emotionally healthy and so spiritually mature. I'm blown away. You've really worked on it. I can tell.
Oh, it was a
Astounding
chore.
to hear you say that, because that's not a place where a lot of people successfully get to,
Yeah, I know. It isn't. I mean,
because
it
there's
really
no
was
guidance.
work.
There's no guidance through the process. This is it.
I hope so. People who have read it and they've given me feedback said it was like medicine, because I got it.
Yeah.
And they could, it resonated. And so, and really, I felt like this was a collaboration of my son with me, because sometimes I would write and then I think, what did I write?
Where
and
did
I
that
go
come
over it
from?
again, and I thought, did I write that?
Well, I want to get into that whole aspect of it in a minute, but first I want to comment on something you said. There's a topic I don't like to talk about very much because I always get in trouble with the algorithm. So you have to
be careful.
Yeah, I think you'll understand what I'm referring to here in a second. Our recent unfortunate medical situation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I read a very interesting psychological study recently that said the people that had the easiest time adjusting to all of it, were the people who were sort of tended towards depression and were pessimistic in life, because it merely served to prove their dark view is true. The worst thing that could possibly happen, it happened, and they survived, and they coped better than a lot of people who were optimists, and which cracked me
Interesting.
up because I'm the pessimist and the cynic, and I've coped better than anybody else in the family. And it's hilarious to me. It's like, finally, there's a benefit. But I think, what did you say that brought that to mind? Oh, just thinking that this was the worst thing that could possibly happen, and now it's happened, and being in the denial that it couldn't possibly have happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you're such an optimistic person, but you have moved through this in such a healthy way.
Well, yeah, I mean, I did this this kind of a self-help workshop, which was really, really valuable. So one of my daughters pushed me and my younger daughter to go do this workshop. And it was really almost like 4 months maybe after Louis had passed. And I was like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. And I did as much as I could in that workshop. But part of being in it was to really look at the false sense of securities that you have, or the stories that you've built up about yourself or your life or the people in your life or your upbringing or whatever it is. And a lot of people did, like it's a group of humans together. There was trauma. And so it was interesting for me to be a participant, but more to be an observer. And I was still in this state of kind of, shock and denial and pain and everything. But it gave me a glimmer of just looking at what we create and what we believe. And if we believe it, the self-prophecies of what will come true. And so I kind of had almost no belief system after he died.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like this, this palette that you could just paint whatever you wanted on it. And I'm still kind of that way now. I draw from this, and this makes sense, and this is interesting, but it's not really, I don't think it's that way. And being raised Catholic, 12 years Catholic school education, and we're generational Catholics, we go way back. And you didn't veer from that, that was just the whole family. And I have
Tell
a big
me
family,
about
so
it.
yeah, so clan pressure and everything else that you have in a big family. And that, since that crumbled for me, then I was open to say, okay, so I can't get caught up in the fears of everything, because my worst fear happened already. And someone in that group asked me, and he was a Marine, and he had lost, he had a prosthetic leg, and they were going around in circles, and they asked, what do you fear? What do you fear? And his was losing buddies. That was the worst thing that he had experienced. It was horrible for him, a trauma. And when they asked me, I just said, I don't fear anything. And they said, how can you not fear anything? And it's like, well, because the worst thing happened. And so there's no point fearing things. Like, stuff is going to happen. Just figure out how to be ready to get through it, over it, or not, whatever you're going to do. But fear didn't serve me.
One of the things that is significant in people's lives, if you're in a horrible accident, or you lose somebody, or you get a potentially fatal disease, but you manage to come out the other end,
Yes.
the shock, because it's unexpected, because we believe, no matter how much we think this is not true, we believe we're invincible. It'll never happen to me,
Yes,
Who is that? Let me see who that is.
I can hear you. This is little Sunny.
This is the star of the show.
Yes, I call him my familiar because he's never far from me. But right now, okay, go.
What's his name?
Okay, so look at this name. His name is. So we got him after Louis died, and I said, "Oh, let's call him Sunny, Sunny, because he's just this wonderful burst of sunshine." It was very Freudian, isn't it?
Yeah, that's hilarious. Are you sure you spelled it right?
Oh, yeah.
So cute.
Well, I'm sticking to it.
A little mutt, or is he something?
Yeah. He was a little rescue dog. He's part. I think
Something.
Papillon and some kind of mix.
Yeah. That's so cute. And probably for your granddaughter, that was very therapeutic.
Yeah, yeah, that was
Yeah,
wonderful.
so
Mhm.
helpful. Yeah,
We,
I
we
really
we were
love
like Dr. Doolittle's here. I bought her so many. We had rabbits and yeah, we had everything under the sun. I was like,
That's
whatever
good
it takes.
though. It's
Yeah,
comforting, you know.
yeah, it
The
is
animals
comforting.
play a very important role in
Right.
people's lives. And I
I
used to
believe
be
that.
one of those people that was like, what are you crying about? It's only a dog, you know. And now I'm ashamed I ever said that because,
Right. I love your is it a canary or a parrot?
oh, you can hear her?
Sometimes I
Oh,
can. It's wonderful. No, I
she's
can barely hear her, but sometimes she comes through and I know she's singing to Broadway
Broadway show.
songs.
She's actually, that's
I love it.
Scarlett. She's an
I love it.
African gray.
Oh,
She's
okay.
so she's a parrot. She's kind of a medium-sized parrot, and yes, she knows, she can hear from my tone of voice. She knows I'm talking on here, and
Oh,
she's obsessed with telephones and screens. And she's chiming in. She probably, I heard her do something. I tune it out, but I think she did her famous "What are you doing?"
oh, cute.
It's really fun. Every once in a while, I'll bring her on and do a short video with her. Some people don't like the tone, you know, of her
Oh,
squawking, and some people ask me to bring her
oh,
on, so
yeah.
I pace it. I made
Oh,
a video a couple of weeks ago with her, and she's
oh, okay.
hilarious because
Oh, cute. I have to see that.
she wants to eat my earrings, and then when that
Of
doesn't
course.
work, she wants to eat the cards because they tear paper. They're shredders, you know, in the
Right,
wild.
right.
But she's had a very traumatic life. She was owned by a man who was ill and got these parrots to keep him company. But as soon as he was recuperated, he didn't have time for them. And it was one of those weird things where I ran into him in the bank. I heard him
Oh
talking
my
about
God.
it. And I said, are you selling, you know, because I
Yeah.
wanted a parrot. So I had her for, I don't know, 9 years. And
Oh my
I got a
gosh.
job where I was working 12-hour days. I was just across the street. I was doing in home care for a neighbor, but I was gone 12 hours a day. And these birds are really intelligent and really
Mm-hmm.
emotionally intelligent, and they go through trauma if they don't get attention.
Oh my
And she
gosh.
started picking her feathers, and that's a sign. That's
Oh,
anxiety. So
oh,
it broke my heart. I rehomed
yeah.
her, and the agreement was if she decided she'd had enough, she was going to give the bird back to me.
Oh,
And I found out she gave it away to somebody else.
oh my gosh.
So I was devastated for a long time. I was really angry.
Oh,
And
I don't
then
blame you.
the woman she gave it to died. And her husband didn't like the bird. The day his wife died, he started making arrangements with the pet store to get rid of the bird.
Oh my gosh.
And the woman I originally gave her to knew them, interceded, brought her to me, and got her on my front porch.
Oh, how nice.
So she's been traumatized,
Yeah.
and I feel responsible. And she has not stopped picking. When
Oh,
she gets
really?
bored, she picks. So she has a
Okay.
ring around her neck, which is often bare, and she has a beautiful long red tail that she pulls out compulsively. It'll grow
Oh,
back, it'll start looking beautiful
yeah.
again, and then the next day it'll be all gone.
Oh my gosh.
It's like biting your fingernails with people. That's how smart
Yeah,
they are. You develop the habit, and then it's almost
they are.
impossible to break the habit.
Right, because that's such an emotional reaction to surroundings
Yeah,
and whatever
yeah,
else she's feeling.
yeah. But she's
Huh.
spoiled rotten now. We feel so bad.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so Sunny. He's spoiled.
And of course, I do all the work. I feed her, I clean her up, I clean the cage, I take
Me
her and
too.
give her, and she loves my husband.
No, Sunny loves me. He's like, I keep checking, like, am I growing fur on my side? Because he's never
Oh,
far from one side or the other.
that's so good. Well, that says an awful lot about the resilience and the capacity to love, doesn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And
So
you see it, or at least me, after, you wouldn't think a tragic event brings gifts, but really it opened me up in ways that I was closed. I just was closed. And oftentimes when you take things for granted, you are closed because your world is like this big of what can happen or should happen. I guess you
right.
use the word should.
Yeah. It
And
can never happen to me. It
yeah,
would
yeah,
never. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm okay. This is fine. And once that security is gone, and it allows also, I mean, pain floods in like crazy. But once you work through it, like I called it the open heart club because my heart was broken. I thought my heart is broken. So there's a fissure or an opening, right? Except after I got through all of this, it actually allowed, that openness allowed more love to be released and more love to be entered. And that was a gift.
It's beautiful. And I think it's interesting, there's that syndrome that people die of, the broken heart syndrome, where they have suffered a loss and they actually develop a temporary cardiomyopathy and sometimes die from it. It's why elderly people, they grieve to the point where they just die.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So it's to your advantage to try to work through things, because you're setting yourself up for the stress. The stress causes problems.
Right. But the body will will show eventually.
Yeah. So let's see here. So you got your family, you got them to open up more and to be more vulnerable by, just getting together and talking. Is that
right? Well, once I realized that I was not servicing them in any way at all because I was closed, then what kind of example was I also showing them not to be speaking about all of these fears and doubts that I had about myself and my own recovery from it? So then we started to talk, and then they became really open conversations and really truthful, sharings, and it was really good. It actually, I thought we were a close family, and it really made us so much closer and so much more aware.
Degrees. Yeah. So let's see. Oh, you talk about grief being exhausting.
Yeah, it is. It is exhausting because, well, at least for me, trying to put up the facade of I'm okay and having nothing, there's no fuel in the tank. Well, by the time I'd go to bed at night, it was like, oh, thank God I don't have to, do this anymore. I mean, sleep was like the narcotic I wanted the most, because in that moment, nothing existed, right? Except maybe a few weird dreams or something. But it was those few seconds before I would wake that I would have only where nothing, I didn't remember that he had died. And so I would live to wake up for those few seconds, but then eventually it became such a reality that it didn't happen. I woke up knowing that he was gone.
I hear people talk about that something awful has happened and they don't remember when they first wake up. And I've never experienced that. The closest I've come is to waking up and not being sure what day it is. That happens a lot. I usually don't know what day it is all day long, but so I find that really, I don't want to sound like I'm minimizing it, but it's intriguing to me that you protect yourself a little bit when you're asleep, I guess, and when you first wake up, that lingers.
Yeah, it's only a second, but you'll take it because it's a second,
relief.
Yeah.
So you made this new commitment, you said, to connect with him, and I really want to talk about that, because what struck me about this book, and I know it's about the process of grieving and trying to come out the other side with some sort of functional emotional life, right? But the thing that I'm fascinated by is the way in which you describe it as it opened your heart to a whole lot of new ideas, that you became more willing to entertain different spiritual belief systems. I thought that was so interesting because our background, our kind of religious upbringing is so similar, and somehow we ended up here, we're heretics. What can I say? Right?
Yes, we are. Big H on the chest.
That's right. I have the whole alphabet. Funny you should bring that up. I was just reading about Nathaniel Hawthorne, that stuff. So I'm distracting myself here. Typical. The whole process of suddenly being willing, or maybe it wasn't so sudden, being willing to entertain different belief systems and getting comfort from them. Can you talk more about that?
Sure. I've always been interested and read other, like, about Buddhism and things like that, since I was a teenager. And then I kind of, raised kids and stopped doing as much of the interesting things I kind of did.
I call it being busy procreating.
Yes, I'm busy procreating. Yes. And so it was always something that intrigued me. and I dabbled with, but I wouldn't go too far because my, my religious restrictions would keep me in my
So
boundaries.
you still felt constrained by Catholicism?
Not at this point, but
Earlier.
well, actually, yeah, I guess I did, because I did, my children went to Catholic school too. I put them through religious education. So
You
I
put
was
them through that, huh?
well, it was very different from my experience.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They only
yeah.
had lay teachers. There were no
No
nuns
nuns.
anymore.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So it was very different, and they had good experiences and all. But I just started to question everything and anything. And so even going to church was difficult for me, because I would hear prayers, and I'd hear the rote prayers, that
Mhm.
we would
Mhm.
recite. And just, in my kind of crazy state, I think, I don't need this. I need something more. I don't
Yeah.
want to keep repeating things that I know by memory. It's not serving me anymore. So personally, it wasn't what I connected with. So I had to go searching for something else. And so then, because I was also delving into an area of like, I want to find my son, and he died, so where is he? I was in a whole other realm of questions. And so I started to read everything and listen to everything. And then I was constantly talking to my son, and I started to get signs, I still do. He does this tingle up my left leg, and sometimes it's really strong, and I'm like, what? Like, is the house on fire? What do you want me to hear? And then something happens, and I'm like, oh, right. Or I'll go outside, I'll look outside, and I'll see something that, reminded me of what he loved doing or something.
Yeah. When you talk about the hummingbirds being kind of a common family sign.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We had hummingbirds around our house after he died. I don't remember them before, but after he died, they would come fly into my house. And one funny time, it collapsed. They kind of try to, if they're poking, I don't know if they play possum or they just get energetically, exhausted. But it collapsed, and I thought, oh my God, no, you can't die in my house. And I performed little CPR on him, and I was doing like my maternal magical breathing over him, and took him outside, and then he popped up and flew away. But the hummingbirds, and also for family members, my brother was having an anniversary dinner in a restaurant one night, right about a year after he died, and he said a hummingbird tapped at the window where they were sitting on their, and then, I mean, so, and so much more than that, so much more of just things that you can't explain. Like,
well, you have these great pictures, and I don't think they're going to show up really well here. I'm going to try, but these beautiful violet beams of light that connected people, and you actually talked about it at the moment. That was him uniting you guys, and then your granddaughter had this rainbow. Look at that. That's remarkable, and it never happened before or after.
No, it never happened before or after.
You didn't do the Pollyanna with the prisms in the window.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
no, nothing yet. No,
that's
and so
unbelievable.
So I just started to say, there are things that I don't understand, I don't know, I'm not familiar with, and I can't explain, but I will lovingly accept them, gratefully accept them. And so then I became much more open to all kinds of things. And I've had so many more experiences since then, that have just confirmed there's so much more that we don't know, that I don't know. And I'm curious. I'm very curious. And I reconnected. I felt that connection with my son, which that was my goal.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's like, okay, I can live. I'll finish my life, and I'll try to do a good job doing it and live it in appreciation and gratitude. Because my worst fear has now diminished. I did lose him. I'd much rather have him at my breakfast table, but I'll take what I can get, and I know he's there. I know he's there. It was confirmed to me. It's like right now I'm getting the tingle on my leg.
Well, see, that's just it. The fact that you've opened yourself up to receiving those messages. And I know that I've been doing a lot of books and topics about connecting with people who've passed, different vibratory, I mean, all of those concepts and ideas that sort of meld together. And I had a question for you, and if you don't want to share, that's okay. But has he come to you at all when you dream?
He's come to me maybe twice, but he comes to my husband in these very lucid dreams where he gives him these hugs that my husband is and my husband is not one to dream, and he's also not one to delve into any of these other crazy areas that I
That's
go
why.
to.
That's why.
I guess. And I always laugh because I say he's afraid to hug me, because if he hugs me, I'm just like hanging on like cheetah.
You're not letting go.
He's like, Mom's not safe, I can't hug her. But yeah, and he's come to relatives in dreams. Right after, I don't remember if I put this in the book or not, but right after he passed, my cousin, it was about 3 weeks after, and I was cooking in the kitchen, and I had his cell phone, which was not charged anymore. I had it in a cabinet right in the kitchen. And my sister-in-law called me, and she said, she said, "Where's Louis's phone?" And I said, "Louis, my husband?" She said, "No, your son." And I said, "It's in the cabinet." And she goes, "Is it charged?" And I said, "No, it's not charged." And she said, I just got a call from him. And she took a screenshot of his phone, and she had his picture, calling her. And I said, his phone, and I pulled it out. I said, his phone is in front of me. It's not charged. And she goes, I just got the call and I took a screenshot of it. And that's like minimally of the stuff that Louis has done.
See, I want to hear more of that, because I 100% believe that happens. Do you remember the book I did a couple of weeks ago? Now I can't remember the name. I lent it to my neighbor whose mother just died. Dr. Christopher Kerr, who worked at hospice and dealt with people. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, the stories that people tell when they're near death, and these are people who have lingering terminal diseases. These are not people who die suddenly, but communication afterwards too. And if you're open to it,
yes,
there's a commonality. These stories repeat and repeat and repeat. People often get phone calls from the dead. They'll pick it up and they'll talk, and it'll be, So are you willing to tell a few more of those sorts of contact moments?
Gosh.
I don't want to put you on the spot.
No, well, right after he died, I didn't put that picture in there, but right after he died, because a friend of ours, so Debbie Griggs, she's a friend. Right. She had become a friend before that. And so she had explained to us about colors, and, so violet is a high vibrational color.
Yes, it's a very, very high spiritual color. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so she said he came to her and told her to tell us to look at photos. Look at photos, take lots of photos. We're like, okay.
Oh, wow. And that's why you knew that violet. Oh, wow.
Right.
Wow.
And so about 3 days after he died, my niece went to his place, and she just took a picture of his den where he used to like to read. And it was just maybe 2 or 3 days after. And in the center of the room, there's this violet, very faint though, a violet beam coming down. So we kind of looked and thought, okay, is he trying to say I'm here? Then those subsequent pictures a few months later were really pronounced. The color was very pronounced. And oh my gosh, I mean,
well, before he died, was he very spiritually inclined?
Okay, so this is the curious part about it. So he suffered a lot from anxiety and depression. And this was the kid who in school, they would say, the teachers would just call him this little bubble of happiness. So when he started to go through this dark period, it was right around like teen years. Then we thought he was bipolar, and then maybe schizophrenic, because he said he could hear people's conversations. So he suffered a lot through that. And then he'd have some times where he was perfectly good, and then other times when it was really upsetting his life. So it was really hard to find the balance to be there for him, because as you know, people who go through that, sometimes they want you there and sometimes they reject you completely. And so what we finally had a friend who recognized it, and he was still alive. She said, "You're not schizophrenic or bipolar." She said, "But if you have a mediumship that's on a Merlin status." And he was kind of like, now curiously, she suggested he just needed to be grounded. She said, "You're not grounded at all, and you're too powerful. So you're like this antenna that's picking everything up." So this was all new to me, right? But all I wanted to do was help him in his life when he was living, like, whatever it takes, I'll do whatever. Let's go, let's do it. And she said, I'll work with you if you want, or I'll send you to somebody if you want to work with it. And I mean, they went to Catholic school. None of my children continued to go to church or anything, but Louis had this thing where he couldn't do it. And he said, Mom, what would you do? And I said, well, I'm curious. I would go try it. And I said, I'll go with you if you want. I'll go with you. And he said, I have to think about it. And
Was
he
it
decided
too
no.
non-Catholic, too non-traditional?
Yes, I
Yeah.
think so. But the curious part is he wasn't, I mean, we went to church and we did all of that, but we were not like, oh, you're going to die if you don't go to confession and things like that. I was not that kind of a mom. That was not our religious way. We complied and did Sunday mass. And so it was strange. But then after he passed, someone said he may have had a terrible past life memory of when he was in his full power, and it was too scary to repeat it. She said, because he's very, very powerful. So that was all I knew of my son.
Obviously from the ways that he's tried to make contact with you, that's pretty developed, that's not easy. They say that it's very difficult for souls to contact the material world. It's not
right. I was in just doing some meditation in a meditative session, and I was with other people in this room, and they turned off all the lights, and we were doing this meditative session. And it was about 5 months after he passed, and I felt him. They asked us to go into and channel our parents. Let's do some healing with parents. And I thought, I'm fine with my parents. My parents were great. And I closed my eyes, and all of a sudden I felt this vibration in my entire body from head to toe, but it was like a light socket vibration. Wow. And I kept my eyes closed because I got kind of scared and nervous. And I thought, what the heck is this? And then I knew in my mind's eye, whatever, I knew it was Louis. And, there are no words. I just get this sense that he was trying to give me a glimpse of this high vibration that he was in. And I'll call it love, because it felt like this. Yeah. And I thought I didn't open my eyes, and the room was completely dark, and I felt like I was levitating, but I was too afraid to open my eyes. So I kept my eyes closed. And then and in my head I said, I don't think I can handle this, honey. I think it's too much for me. I was like an electrical socket. And then it started to diminish right away. He pulled, I say the story is he pulled back. So this is what happened from my perspective. Right, he pulled back. And then I had to make myself like incarnate. So I was touching my body. And then I realized everybody had moved into this other workroom. And I was in here. I don't know how long I was in there. I stayed, and they let me stay there. They just thought I must have not been levitating. And they just thought I was in this
or you were, and they got out of there.
And they ran. I don't blame them. And I just felt like, oh my gosh, he is in such a state of such strong vibrational, almost like love and bliss, that I can't receive it yet. It's too much for me.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to become incarnate again, like to feel my body. I was
part
just
of the 3D world.
Yeah.
Do you know what comes to my mind? So I just, I have no filter. I spew everything out. Is the role he played in your spiritual evolution?
Yes, in all of our spiritual evolution. And I think his sister Hannah was already on that path, but he just kind of accelerated all of us. And yeah, now she does speaking, and I mean, she got a spot for her and I to present at this Conscious Life Expo that's in Los Angeles in February. And I'm doing a lecture, she's doing a workshop. So how we've advanced into putting things out is beyond my comprehension, because that was not something that ever registered for me.
Yeah.
It's
and opened you up to this whole new frame of reference, right?
Yeah. You know what I would say is he was like the sacrifice bunter, and everybody advanced the bases. He got out.
What that means.
Well, in baseball, you bunt. If you're going to come up, instead of hitting it far, you just give it a bunt, which and then you're going to run to first, but everybody on the bases has to move forward, and they'll get you out. But he advanced all the runners on base.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
He got out.
That was his mission in this incarnation, was to provide that opportunity for you guys to expand your awareness.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah.
And for the rest of us. Let's be frank. This
Yeah,
is a
hopefully.
learning process for all of us. It's why we have these conversations, because it's so
Right.
valuable to learn from other people's experiences. Do
Yeah.
you credit any one particular school of thought for being more significant? Has it opened you up to one particular philosophy or belief system that you didn't entertain before? Like, how do I say this? Is there a religious belief or a philosophy or a spiritual process that has been the most helpful, the most significant?
Um, Gosh, I'm just like this. It's like a buffet for me, a rich,
Uh-oh.
rich buffet. And I can't really say I'm clinging to any one particular thing.
Yeah.
I'll do a practice for a while of something that resonates, and then I can move on to something else.
Right.
I have my singing bowl, I
Oh, that's
like
so
that. I
cool.
pull
Yeah.
that out every once in a while.
Yeah.
I do, what do you call it? I do saging on the regular because I just like that. But that's kind of a tradition that my dad grew up in Arizona, and he had a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
native in him too.
Native
So that
American.
was
Yeah.
something, yeah. But I think I'm just open to go out and hear more as much as I can. I think it's fascinating. And I think the fact that nothing scares me, there's no fear in me to hear anything anymore, because
Yeah.
back in the day, the fear was that, I might like it, and then I'm going to have to veer off the path I'm on, and I have to stay on this path.
Oh, interesting. See, my fear very early on, I mean, it's long since gone. I believe the fear that's instilled in you by institutionalized religions is intentional to keep control.
Yes,
This is my
absolutely.
opinion.
In my opinion too.
Okay, I
I
don't
know
want to
there are
step on
people,
toes.
yeah, I know people benefit from it, and if that's their jam, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I have no problem with
Just
other
don't
people's
come to my
practices.
front door to try to
Right.
force it
I
on me.
Yeah, I just say, just the way I'm respectful of everyone else's belief system, just be respectful, return the same
Yes.
respect. Return the
Yes.
same respect.
Yeah.
And then we'd be
Well, as
happy.
we
We'd
were
be fine.
speaking earlier, about who in our lives know about these sorts of processes that we're going through, and the fact that I have a lot of relatives and friends that have no idea that I do this, because I don't
Mhm.
think it's my job to shove it at them,
Right.
And I think it's really important to keep that level of live and let live. Believe what
Yeah.
you want. Just keep it.
Right, right. As long as you're not hurting anybody, that's the main tenet. Live in
Yeah.
kindness and love. Kindness and love. If that's your guide, kindness and love, you're gonna be okay. Doesn't matter what you practice, right? You're not gonna do anything that would be harmful to anything or person.
Yeah.
Um, and
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 you can extrapolate from that. Not only is it spiritually proper road to take, but in life in general, when and things are kind of crazy and unsettled and discombobulated right now, and there's a lot of fear around that. Hey, I feel it. I read the paper this morning. I feel it. And I have to always tell myself what matters is how you treat other people in your periphery today. And
right,
if you do that all, and there's no guarantee that that's going to
right,
protect you from anything, but
right.
it's the way to get you right with God, right with your spirit. Yeah.
Yeah, right with your spirit. And yeah, absolutely. And there's not, you go down that crazy rabbit hole as you read so much, and there's nothing you can do about it. And they're going to give it to you 20 more times in a day. So what I found is I'm saying more is I'm protecting my energy. I just protect
Yeah,
my energy more. It's
I
like, nope, I
understand
don't want
that.
to spend it there. I want to keep it here, or I'll
Right.
spend it here, but I won't
Yeah.
spend it there.
Oh, it's a constant struggle for balance, because I 100% agree with you. And I feel a huge obligation to contribute to awareness. And
Yeah.
when I think that it's surely people are drowning in this negative information, I'll hear from somebody, oh, I never heard of that.
Yeah.
And I can't believe it,
I
and
know.
a current event, a current, thing that's going on today. So I
Right.
feel like there is this gap of information. You can decide what you're going to do with it, but it's important to keep people aware. The
Right.
tendency is to protect ourselves, to bury our heads,
Right.
and positive change never happens
Yeah.
It's
And I think for
spaceless.
you to present what you want to present is wonderful because everyone else has the ability to change, go to another site. If it's too much for
Turn it
them, that's
off.
fine.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
perfectly fine. But those who have curiosity or who are interested in it, then, we all get to then benefit.
Well, it's like you said earlier, if it falls on one set of ears that needs to hear it, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's how I totally feel like if these messages, like what you're giving
Right.
us today, which I'm so grateful for, it's so valuable. Uh, if this helps one person, then we've
Yeah.
done our work today.
Yes. I'm so
Yeah,
grateful.
yeah. I think what the process you've gone through, is painful and difficult for you as it's been, is a beautiful example of rising to the difficulties in life with grace. And that's very hard to do. I have to say it again, your strength of character, because I'm more inclined to wallow in self-pity. So your strength of character is really moving and very impressive, and it's a great model. And that's why this book is so important, because when you're really down there, this is a lifeline. I believe
Thank
that.
you. That's why it's there. It's just for anyone who it resonates with. I hope it does them well. I hope it allows them to continue living a full life again, because you just have to adjust, and acceptance was the big thing I had to accept.
Acceptance.
And
That's
and
right.
then it taught me to accept other things in life too that are not in my control. But then the most beautiful things can happen to me, or with others that I've experienced wonderful things. I've done wonderful trips and journeys. I did a Celtic goddess tour with my daughter and another group, and that was amazing, to
Where did
Ireland
you
and
go?
Scotland. Oh gosh,
Oh,
we
you
went through
actually went
Ireland.
to Ireland
Yes.
and Scotland. Oh,
And we went to the
wow.
holy wells, and we went to the caves, and we went to the druid sites,
The
and
trees, the
we
oak. Yeah.
I can't remember his name now, but it was a famous poet, or he's a poet. I shouldn't say famous, but I guess he's well known there. He took us to his home, and it was a little cottage out in the country. I don't know how far we were from a city. Made us dinner. We went through his what do you call it? What do you call the thing that you walk and it's circular? I lost my words.
Labyrinth.
A labyrinth. He had a labyrinth with his apple trees and his plants, and he read us Keats. I mean, his wife played the harp in her little living room, and we had to shine our iPhones to give her light because she only had one bulb in the center. It was
Oh
the
my
most magical
God.
experience ever. Ever. We went to the Isle of Skye, and I'm telling you, there were
Oh,
things I probably would have said, well, maybe I shouldn't go because whatever, I have to do this. Now I'm like, oh, that sounds wonderful. Let's do it. I have now before I had this much life, now I have like this much life. So I got to make this count. And I didn't feel that when I was deep in grieving. So for others, if they just look at me as like, you can get here, you have to do the work. It is hard. It's not a
well, you
warm
said you
fuzzy.
said it. You said the most important word. And we've been talking. I don't know. Denise and I had this big conversation about this the other day. You said the word acceptance, and the other synonym, surrender. And it's a very
Mhm.
Buddhist belief.
Yeah,
It's giving yourself over to whatever happens, instead of trying to manipulate your world so that things turn
right.
out a particular way. Instead of getting on your knees, please God, let me get an A
Yes,
on my test.
yes. And here's 10
maybe
Hail
you're
Marys.
not meant maybe you're not meant to get that degree or take that
Right,
test or whatever. You
right.
don't know what the plan is or what the
Exactly.
lessons are that your path will provide you with. And so rather than railing against your fate, which is what most of us would do, you took the other path of accepting, surrendering, and you had to learn it, didn't
Yeah,
come
you have to
right
learn it.
away.
And
Yeah.
it's not an easy one. That's the hardest one, especially if you're, I was a school teacher, and I, order and whatever. And I had, my plan, and my classroom was my kingdom and all that. So and I had all this, control over my children's lives, in my delusional life. And
Sure you did.
yeah,
I've
and
long since gotten over that delusion.
yeah, you have to. I mean, you just have to for your sanity.
Yeah.
But I heard a phrase probably within the last year of for when you want something or whatever, you just say like, for the most benevolent outcome.
Oh, I
And
love that. That's
I
good.
love that too.
Yeah.
I heard it on a YouTube podcast, and it was really, it resonated. Now, sometimes it's hard for me to say still because I'm like, but I really want this. It's like, okay, accept release for the most benevolent outcome. Because it's true, some things may not serve me or they're for someone else.
Well, the word benevolent, it means wanting the good.
Yeah, wanting the good.
So that's perfect. Do you listen to that podcast where he interviews a lot of psychics and channelers, but from a spiritual point of view? What's it called? The soul something. Oh, I'm terrible. I can't remember facts. Don't expect me to remember facts.
I know, me neither. I can't either.
I'm looking it up because I would recommend it if people are not aware of it. It's a valuable podcast because of the quality of people that he interviews, from physicists to philosophers and everything in between. And it's called Next Level Soul.
Oh, okay. No, I haven't. I've listened to
Alex. Where did it go? Darn it. Alex.
That sounds familiar.
For heaven's sake. You know how your phone jumps around?
Yes.
Because my phone hates me. Well, it's Alex something.
But Next Level Soul. Next Level Soul. Okay, sounds good.
Really interesting.
I do go on the philosophical site, and they have everything from beginning to end of stuff. And so, I just find it all fascinating. Like I said, it's this wonderful buffet of information and experiences. And
so are you the Homer Simpson of buffets? We see when they see you coming, they lock the door because he puts restaurants out of business.
Well, I think it works the other way around. They're going to love me because I'm all over the place now.
All over the place. My grandmother was terrible. She used to wrap food up in a napkin and put it in her purse for life.
Well, I have been known to do that when my children were little and we were on vacation because I knew they'd get hungry 10 minutes after we walked out. I was like, get a banana.
Well, we're all criminals by nature. That's hilarious. Well, Chrissy, is there anything I didn't ask you that you'd like to share and talk about?
No, I think we covered a lot. My book is on Amazon, and so if anybody wants access, it comes up sometimes as Christine Madrid, but it is Valenzuela. And and I would just ask if you could just if they put a little review or something, it helps me. I've given away so many books because I just see people and I'm like, here, try this, I just wanted this to get out there to resonate with whoever it's
I'm really grateful that you got in touch with me, and I'll tell you why. I'm never entirely sure. You're dealing with the internet, right? And I'm always so cautious, but there was something about this book, and it's so weird how these things are sort of synchronistic, because I've gotten messages from people recently about the subject of grief and loss. And then your book popped up around that same time, and I thought, well. I try to remain open to signs, and I thought, okay, this is good timing, excellent timing. Yeah.
Right, excellent timing for me too, because that expo popped up right after you told me about us doing this podcast. So I thought, okay, I guess, synchronicity. I'll go with it.
Well, tell people at the expo to watch this conversation. That'd be cool.
Yes, I will. Yes.
And it's hilarious because I'm reading a book right now about addiction to the internet, and I'm not, my phone's not surgically attached to me. I'm not, but there's a little bit there. I recognized it. I saw the signs, and it's an addiction to, more subscribers. It means nothing. It's totally meaningless. It's all about ego, right? But it's that reward. It's a neurological thing, and it's a psychological.
It is, but also what you do is it's really serving people. It served me, and I'm sure the ones who follow you with your comments, whatever you read, it is serving because there's so much information out there, and there's so much that I have to reject on the daily. And these are things that they leave me richer, right? I don't walk away feeling empty, like, oh God, that was horrible, if I listen to some whatever broadcast. So I think it does serve its purpose. Yeah.
Well, thank you. That's really gratifying. And I'm not taking credit for it because it's really, I say this all the time, and I really mean this sincerely. It blows my mind how these books present themselves. I'm not going on a hunt. They
Yeah.
present themselves and they do it in a logical, timely fashion. And I feel like it's completely out of my hands. I mean, at
Well,
this point,
yeah.
every once in a while, something political, I'll hear about it. But then there again, it's presenting itself because I'm hearing about it,
Right.
on
Right.
a discussion somewhere. And I hear about books all the time because that's kind of what I gravitate to. I only present a fraction of the ones I hear about, but they always
Right.
seem to be right on the mark for
Right. Right.
somebody, and that,
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
said, even if it's
Yeah.
one person.
Well, yep, we'll be doing I'm actually doing a booth with my daughter, and she's doing her lecture on the Cosmic Mother, and it's specifically the Virgin of Guadalupe.
Oh,
But
that'll
she's
be
taking it
interesting.
into a whole Cosmic Mother kind of a thing, and she does all kinds of stuff with that. So we'll have our little booth together at that Conscious Life Expo.
Are you going to be recording it?
um, I think they will record it. I think there is. I don't even know all the details yet. She's filling out the forms and
Well,
all.
do me a favor. If they do record it for the purposes of posting it on YouTube, let me know and I will tell people so
Okay.
that they can. And tell your daughter, here's a little tidbit I read recently that I think is so fascinating. There are places on the planet where apparitions have occurred. And over time, and we're talking, millennia, the
Right.
same spot has different kinds of apparitions, and they seem to evolve with our evolution as a people, as a species. So the example was Roswell, New Mexico. There was an apparition there where a nun appeared in two places at one time. She was back home in Spain and totally
Oh, I heard you mention that.
and showed up in Roswell and spoke to the Aboriginal people. And then what happens a few hundred years later? But then there's this weird UFO event that happened, which pretty much you can't argue anymore that it didn't happen. What it was, it's hard to
Yeah.
say, but yeah.
Yeah.
And I just think places like Fatima, Lourdes,
Right.
Medjugorje, is that how you say it?
Right.
Just
Right.
all these
Medjugorje.
different
Right.
places.
And
Well,
there's also a thing about ley lines on the earth of
yes,
concentric power.
yeah,
And a lot of those line up with
that's right.
these occurrences.
Sort of like little portals. I know it's not the
Yeah.
right word,
Yeah.
but kind of
Yeah.
like that. And Our
Kind of
Lady
like
of
that.
Guadalupe she's the one with the roses, the Native
Yes.
American guy. Yeah, okay,
Yes.
yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So she's the only virgin that is pregnant. She's pregnant. The way she's dressed is the way an Indian lady would dress. It's
I
called
don't.
encinta. So she has a belt up high, like an empress dress, but that was a sign of pregnancy. And she's
Wow.
the only virgin that was mother in state, mother.
When
Yeah.
we
So
first
Hannah,
emigrated
yeah.
to California, uh, the place we were living with an uncle is a weird story, but it was a parish that was almost entirely Mexican American because of the neighborhood. We were living there,
Mhm.
And I remember as a very young child going to Our Lady of Guadalupe Church every
Oh.
Sunday. And I can remember they had this beautiful painting of her
Mhm.
standing on a bed of roses. And I don't
Mhm.
remember what she was wearing, but I remember the aura around
Right.
her.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
just a little
Yeah.
tidbit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Hannah loves her. She's I'll give her a little plug. She's Wildflowers Within. So she does all kinds of stuff on YouTube and all that. But
Oh, she has a
I mean,
channel?
yeah, she has a channel. Uh-huh. She's on
Wildflowers Within. Okay, well,
Within.
I
Uh-huh.
tell her I'm going to
Yeah.
subscribe. I'm going to look it
Okay.
up and
Yes.
subscribe, definitely. Maybe we'll get her here.
She's done a few. She's fascinating. She's really
Oh, I'm
the
excited. See, these things
spirit.
just present themselves. I'm telling you.
Yes, I know. It's true.
It's astounding. Well, Christy, thank you. I don't want to keep you all day.
No,
And
thank
my
you so
dogs
much.
dying to go for a walk. They hate it when I record early because it just, their schedule. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dogs.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so grateful.
Oh, no. I'm grateful to you. I think what you've done is remarkable. The journey that you've taken, literally, the word journey that you've taken has just been really a role model, an example for all of us. And I really strongly recommend this to anybody who's watching, who's going through any kind of a grief process. And it doesn't have to be fresh. You know, a lot of us don't deal with our
Oh, yeah.
losses, you know,
Right.
and it doesn't even have to be a person. It can be a pet. People just are devastated, you know,
Yes.
and don't get social affirmation and support. And this book is so supportive, and it's
Right.
you're
Loss is
so
loss.
you're
Mhm.
so honest in it, and I really appreciate it. So thank you very, very much for coming on and joining me. You're an illustrious guest in our channel.
Thank you. I don't get called that often, but thank you. I accept it. It's wonderful.
Oh wow, you know, mothers, right? And
Yes.
I hope we'll have you back. Maybe when you're done with your expo, you come back and talk about it. You could be our correspondent out there in the real world and come back
Oh,
and tell
sure.
us how it goes. Oh,
Sounds
thank you
great.
so much, Christine.
Okay.
I really, really appreciate it. And thank
Thank
you
you.
to everybody for watching. And Slongafoil, Slancha.